Most people are paying for bike repairs they never actually needed. Not because the problems are complicated, but because they were never shown how simple they really are. And over time, that creates a quiet pattern. Something feels off, you take it to a mechanic, you pay, you ride again, until the next issue shows up. Same cycle. Same dependency. The frustrating part is that many of these problems repeat. And each time, it feels like something new, when in reality, it's often the same root causes showing up in slightly different ways. You try to take care of your bike. You clean it. Maybe you even watch a few videos. But when something actually goes wrong, it still feels uncertain. Like one wrong move could make things worse. So instead of risking it, you outsource it. But here's what most people don't realize. A large percentage of common bike issues fall into a category that's completely manageable without a mechanic. Not because they're trivial, but because they follow patterns. And once you start seeing those patterns, things begin to shift. Let's break down 7 bike problems that people regularly pay for, but often don't need to. The first one is noisy brakes. That high-pitched squeal that makes every ride feel wrong. Most people assume something is damaged. Maybe the brake pads are worn out. Maybe the system needs replacement. So they take it in. But in many cases, the issue is much simpler. Dirt, moisture, or slight misalignment. You can clean the braking surface. You can check alignment visually. You can test small adjustments. The problem isn't the brake itself, it's the assumption that noise equals failure. The second one is slipping gears. You're riding, and suddenly the chain jumps. It feels unstable. Unpredictable. This is where a lot of people immediately give up and go straight to a repair shop. Because gears feel technical. Precise. Easy to mess up. But often, the issue comes down to cable tension. A small adjustment, sometimes just a turn or two, can realign the shifting system. What makes it seem complex is the mechanism. But the underlying fix is often incremental, not drastic. The third problem is a loose chain. It feels like something serious. Like the bike is falling apart. But chains stretch over time. That's normal. The solution isn't always replacement, it's understanding tension and positioning. And once you see how the chain interacts with the rest of the system, it stops feeling random. It becomes mechanical, predictable. The fourth one is flat tires. This is probably the most common, and the most outsourced. Not because it's difficult, but because it's inconvenient. People don't want to deal with removing the wheel, checking the tube, finding the puncture. So they pay for speed. But fixing a flat is one of the most repeatable, learnable skills in bike maintenance. And once you've done it a few times, it becomes routine. The real barrier isn't complexity. It's unfamiliarity. The fifth problem is squeaky pedals or crank noises. These sounds are subtle at first. Easy to ignore. Then they get worse. And because the source isn't obvious, people assume it's something internal. Something serious. But often, it's just a need for lubrication or tightening. Metal parts moving under pressure will always create friction points. The key is knowing where those points are likely to be. Not guessing, understanding. The sixth issue is brake cables feeling loose or unresponsive. This creates hesitation. You press the brake, and it doesn't feel immediate. That lack of responsiveness creates doubt. And doubt leads to avoidance. So again, the bike goes to a mechanic. But cable systems are designed to be adjustable. Tension can be modified. Responsiveness can be restored. The problem isn't the system, it's not knowing how to interact with it. And the seventh one is basic maintenance neglect. Things like cleaning the drivetrain. Checking bolts. Inspecting wear. These aren't urgent tasks. They don't force action. So they get delayed. Until something bigger happens. And then it feels like the bike, suddenly, has a problem. But in reality, it's a buildup. Small, manageable issues that were never addressed. Here's where everything starts to come together. Most of these problems aren't isolated. They're connected by one thing: lack of structured understanding. People don't fail to fix their bikes because they're incapable. They fail because they're approaching each issue as a separate, unpredictable event. The real issue isn't that bike repair is too difficult. It's that it feels random when you don't understand the system. And when something feels random, the safest option is to hand it off to someone else. But once you start seeing how these pieces fit together, how tension affects shifting, how alignment affects braking, how wear affects performance, it stops being guesswork. It becomes a process. Not perfect. Not instant. But logical. And that changes your relationship with the bike. You stop reacting to problems, and start anticipating them. You stop paying for every issue, and start solving what you can. Not because you're trying to replace a professional, but because you're no longer dependent on one for the basics. If you want a deeper, structured breakdown of how these systems actually work together, there's a practical guide linked in the description. It walks through the core mechanics step by step, so you can understand what's happening, not just follow instructions. And if this kind of breakdown helps you see things more clearly, consider subscribing. Because once you understand the structure behind the problem, everything else gets easier.